What's up, guys? How you doing today? Alright guys, today we're going to be talking about haunted by hurt. Last week we talked about sin, and this week it's about hurt. Look around today and tell me what you see. Do you see smiling faces? People dressed well? What do you see when you look around today? Do you see impressive people? Or people who have it together? Because I'll tell you what I see. I see people just like me who are hurting. And you come here, and you hide behind your smiles, but inside you're hurting. So the question is, what hurts you today? What is it? What's haunting you right now? Is it failure? Failure is one of those things we're all going to come across. At some point in our lives, no matter how hard we try, we will fail. What I want to talk about today is how to deal with that. Overcoming it and using it. Let's consider an Olympic athlete. They train and train and train. And they go to these events and lose hundreds of times before reaching the Olympics. Most of them only reaching it once and not even winning. But they take something from every single defeat, from every single failure. Michael Jordan. He was cut from his sophomore year high school basketball team. The greatest basketball player alive, besides myself, was cut sophomore year of his basketball team. And this is a quote he said. It's one of my favorite quotes of all time. I've missed more than 9,000 shots in my career. I've lost almost 300 games. 26 times I've been trusted to take a game-winning shot and miss. I have failed over and over again in my life, and that is why I succeed. I have failed over and over again in my life, and that is why I succeed. We always seem to dwell on failure a lot of times. We seem to look so down upon it so negatively. Now, I'm not saying failure is good. I'm just saying sometimes, just because you have failed, doesn't mean God cannot use you. Out of failure, we can grow closer to God, and out of failure, we learn of God's grace. Think about it like this. If each and every one of you were perfect sitting here today, do you think you would need God? If each and every one of you were perfect, do you think you would feel the need to be saved? Even if you weren't perfect, if you just hadn't gone through the struggles in your life, do you think you would be as close to God as you are today? For me, that answer is definitely not. When I was at my weakest, when I felt my hardest, I was lost and alone and afraid. God is who I ran to. God found me when I was lost and alone. Maybe today we need a little more failure in our life. There are two types of people I want to talk about today. People who can't get past their failures is the first one. And these people, they wake up and they look at themselves. They don't see anything except failure, screw-ups, mess-ups, flaws. They don't see the good in themselves. All they can see is how badly they failed and everything they have done. They cannot stop thinking about all the bad things, whether it be their sin or flaws or whatever. They just feel like failures. The second person is people who avoid dealing with their failures at all costs. These are the people that love to justify themselves. These are the people that no matter what they've done, they will try and justify it somehow. They won't accept what they've done, but continue to just try and come up with reasons why they aren't that bad or why they aren't wrong. I know so many people like that who cannot admit they're wrong without a fight. They're always justifying everything they do. And guys, I'm here to tell you, neither one of those is better than the other. We must learn from our failures and stop ignoring them. And you stop justifying them and accept we are at fault and we can do better. Someone once told me, as soon as you start justifying something, you're already wrong. As soon as you start justifying something, you are already wrong. And I believe that to be true today. And please don't get me wrong. This is not me coming down on you. This is not me preaching down to you. This sermon is just as much for you as it is for me, because this is my biggest struggle. And a preacher once said, Preach from your weakness, and you'll never run out of material. And I believe that to be true. Guys, I've been both of these people at some point in my life. I've been the person who wakes up and can't stand themselves. I've gone through that. I've woken up and just felt like all my failures were weighing on my soul, and that I just couldn't get past it, and that this was it for me. I've also been the person who avoids it and who justifies every single thing they do. No matter what it is, I would justify it, I would make up an excuse, I would find someone worse than me. I've been both of these people at some point in my life. I've also heard a lot of crazy things justified to me before. Like, God said no sex before marriage, but everything else is okay. God made it, so it's okay, right? This person doesn't. They're fine. They grew up fine. They're perfect people. It's legal, so it's okay. I've already done it once. What's the thing? In my opinion, I could be doing a lot worse, or there are a lot worse things out there. For this one, everyone else does it, so it's okay. The world thinks it's okay, so it's alright, right? Guys, we need to stop justifying things. These are a lot of these are ones I've used before. I've used a lot of these to justify my actions before. We need to stop justifying things and just be better. We need to accept the past, but also accept you don't have to be that person anymore today. You know what's right. You know what's wrong. As soon as you start justifying things, you're wrong. Guys, you know how to correct your errors. Brian is a great preacher. You have a great church here. You know how to fix yourself. You know how to get better. So what are you waiting for? Just do it. Stop brushing things off and stop pushing them aside and using these excuses. See, God doesn't want you to fail. And that's the most important thing I can tell you today. But no, just because you have failed doesn't mean He can't use you. Just because you have failed doesn't mean your life has to be a failure. Psalms 119:71 says, "It was good for me to be afflicted so that I might learn your decrees." This is pretty much saying, it is good for me that I have failed so that I can learn what you're teaching me. It is good for me that I have failed so that I can learn what you're teaching me. Guys, God is teaching us through our failures. We must look for that lesson. And if we're not learning anything from it, we're not gaining from it. And that's the true failure. We can't become content with our failures, guys. We must see how we can be better and what God is trying to lead us to. And guys, I'm sorry, but it's going to be hard. And I'm sorry, God is going to test you. God is going to throw some failure up in your face and see how you react. Are you just going to go with the flow? Are you just going to do what everyone else is doing? Do whatever may be happening in front of your face? Whatever sin may be haunting you? Are you just going to keep doing it? Whatever you may be struggling with, that hurt. Are you going to keep pursuing that? Or are you just going to stay content with your failures? Will you follow the Lord's command, say enough is enough, that will be better? Will you pick your cross up and follow Him? I want to think about all the great Christians who have learned from their failures and what they have taught us in these lessons. First, I want to look at Abraham and Sarah. Abraham, the father of our nations. Sarah couldn't conceive. She couldn't have children. They tried and tried and tried, and they failed and failed and failed. And so, Abraham decided to try and take it into his own hands. He decided to stop trusting God and trust his own judgment. So he conceived a child with his servant. But then God blessed him and Sarah, and He blessed them with a child. And they had to send away his firstborn son and their servant. Guys, this teaches us we must never give up. We have to trust God with our failures, no matter what they may be. Give them to God. Trust in Him. Always. Saul killed hundreds of Christians. Hundreds. He went door to door, knocking on people's doors, And he would go in, search the room, and if he saw any evidence that you were a Christian, he would arrest you right there. And he even said in the Bible, he hated Christians. He hated them. Then he was confronted one time by God, once. And after that, he said, you know what? Saul's done. Saul's done. The past is done. My sin is gone. And he became Paul. He became one of the most respected followers of Jesus in the Bible. Wrote most of the New Testament. A murderer wrote most of our New Testament. Are you guys hear that? A murderer. Someone who hated Christians, literally hated Christians, became one of the most respected followers of Jesus today. That doesn't tell you that anyone can change, and that no matter what your failure is, you can leave it in the past and move on, and I don't know what will. King David slept with another man's wife and then had her husband killed because of his own guilt. But guys, that's not the important part. What's important is what happens next. He repents of his sin with his whole heart. Guys, he falls on his knees in tears and repents of his sin. He accepts his punishment and gets back up and is better. He accepts his punishment, receives forgiveness, gets back up, and is better. Guys, the past is in the past. Your failures are in the past. Today, you can leave them. It's the past. Here's a clip to kind of drive that point home.
Yeah. Looks like the winds are changing.
Change is good.
Yeah, but it's not easy. I know what I have to do, but going back means I'll have to face my past. I've been running from it for so long.
Jeez, what was that for? It doesn't matter. It's in the past.
Yeah, but it still hurts.
Oh, yes, the past can hurt. But the way I see it, you can either run from it or learn from it. You see? So what are you going to do?
First, I'm gonna take your stick.
No, not a stick. Hey, where are you going?
I'm going back!
Get out of here!
Guys, that's an awesome clip. It's funny, but it's so true. Past is in the past. You can either run from it or you can learn from it. See, it's not about what you've done or how you failed. It's about what we do with it and after. The past isn't important anymore. It's time to move on, guys. It's time to move on and let God use your failure to further His kingdom. Leave your past in the past. Leave your failure behind. A man who used to be a minister got a DUI and got arrested. And he thought it was over. He said, you know what? I'm a failure. I was supposed to be this person on high. I was supposed to be this minister. But look at what I've done now. I was supposed to be this light for God. No, I'm a failure. And he sat on that. And then he got back up, guys. He got back up. And he said, you know what? I'm not going to sit in my failure. That's in the past. He gave it to God. He trusted Him. He said, you know what? That's in the past. And he started a ministry in jail. And at first, it was another failure for him. And just another failure for this man. But then one person came. And then 3 people. Then 5 people. Then 100 people. One person got saved. Then 3 people got saved. Then 5 and 100. Guys, it's not about your failures today or what you've done. And those are lives that would have been saved if it were not for his failure. If he had just decided, you know what? I am a failure. I'm done. You know, I failed God. That's it. If he had did that, that's 100+ lives that wouldn't have been saved. Are you guys getting this? It's not about your failures or how bad it is. It's about how you use it for God's kingdom. Because if you trust in him completely, ask for forgiveness, and trust him with your failures, he'll work through it. And he'll make you better. See, God doesn't want you to fail, but he will use your failures. Romans 8:28 says, "We know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose." God calls us to trust in him, no matter what, with everything we come across. And when we start to do things alone is when we start to fall short. You can't just go through life content with your failures anymore. You can't be content. We need to call on God, trust in Jesus to help us, or else we won't be the Christians God has called us to be. And that is truly failing. Matthew 14:25-31. Shortly before dawn, Jesus went out to them walking on the lake. When the disciples saw him walking on the lake, they were terrified. "It's a ghost," they said, and cried out in fear. But immediately Jesus said to them, "Take courage, it is I. Do not be afraid." "Lord, if it is you," Peter replied, "tell me to come to you on the water." "Come," he said. Then Peter got down out of the boat, walked on the water, and came towards Jesus. But when he saw the wind, he was afraid and began to sing, "Lord, save me." Immediately, Jesus reached his hand out and caught him. "You have little faith," he said, "why did you doubt?" And all too often we think of Peter's failures and how he failed Jesus in this moment. But imagine the other disciples sitting there, watching this man get out of a boat and walk on water. Imagine how it felt to walk across water, to do something literally impossible, because he had faith and because he had the boldness to step out of the boat. And guys, today I believe that's a lot of you. You know, you say, "RJ, I had the boldness to step out. I did step out in faith." But then you took a look around and you saw this pain in this world, and you saw the hurt, and you saw the death, and you saw the sin, and you began to sink. You began to sink in this world, and you began to fall down to it. Guys, there's hope. Verse 31 says, immediately, Jesus reached his hand out. Immediately. See what I'm getting at? When you're sinking because this world just throws everything at you, and when storms are crashing around you, when your life is just a mess, and you begin to sink because you're taking your eyes off Jesus, his hand reaches out immediately. He doesn't wait. He doesn't sit back and say, I'm going to let you suffer for a little bit. I'm going to let you sink a little more. No, he puts his hand out immediately for you to grab. He puts his hand out immediately when you start to hurt. He puts his hand out immediately when you're haunted, when you sin. His hand is there, right in front of your face today. Can you take it? For those of you today haunted by failure or hurt or whatever, and you're just sinking, and you say, RJ, I'm sinking too deep. You say, I'm so far from Jesus right now, you don't even understand. I've heard this before. You say, I'm so far, he couldn't even reach me. That's how far deep I am. I have something to tell you. Jesus' arms stretch as far as the east is from the west today. And he reaches down, and he will reach down farther than you can ever sink. He will reach down as far as he can, and his hand will always be there no matter how far you sink in. No matter where you're at right now, his hand is there in front of you. Will you take it? Will you stop letting these things haunt you? I want everyone to close your eyes and bow your head for a minute, if you will. Today, if you feel like you're sinking, man, you say, I've just sinking for so long. There's so many things that I've done, you don't even understand. I've sinking too far. Saying I'm at the bottom of the ocean and this world is just too much for me. You've sinking so far. No matter what it is, it's in the past. Today you can come up and you can get a fresh breath of air. Today you don't have to be drowned by the world. You don't have to be drowned by sin, by what you're haunted. You don't have to be drowned anymore. You don't have to sink anymore. Today, if you're ready to reach out and grab Jesus' hand, if you're ready to leave this world and this pain and this haunting and come up and keep your eyes on Jesus again, if you're ready and you want to reach up and reach out for his hand, please raise your hand right now. And just reach up, grabbing his hand. If you're sinking and you just want to reach up and grab his hand, everyone's eyes are closed, no one's looking, just raise your hand. This is for you and Jesus today. If you've sinking and you're ready, just raise your hand. And there's something else I have to tell you about today. You can put your hands down. There's something else I have to tell you about today. And that's about his boldness. That's about Peter's boldness. See, Peter, he got to do something impossible because of his boldness. He got to walk on water because of his boldness. Everyone open your eyes. Today, I'm sorry, but I'm going to call you to be bold. Because Jesus calls you to be bold. And you have to be bold in this world today. As Christians, you have to be bold, or you're going to fail. So if you raise your hand, just stand up right now. Stand up. No one's judging you. Guys, I'm standing up too. I'm standing up too. I have failed. And I'm failing, I'm sinking with you. But it's okay. It's okay today because we can leave that ocean where we don't have to drown anymore. We can come to the surface, get a fresh breath of air, and keep our eyes on Christ today. Everyone around, people who are standing, please just put a hand on them. Just find a hand somewhere. Just find a hand somewhere. We're just going to pray today. I'm going to pray for you. God, you're awesome. I'm so happy that today we keep our eyes on you. Our boldness will lead us to impossible things. We don't have to sit in this hurt anymore. We don't have to sit in this sin. We don't have to be haunted by our failure. I'm so happy I don't have to sit in that sin. I don't have to sink anymore, and neither does anyone here. They don't have to sink anymore, Jesus. They don't, and that's because of you, and I'm so happy that today they're going to get a fresh breath of air. Lord, you're going to pull them straight up because you immediately put your hand down as soon as they started thinking. And if they start to sink again, your hand will go out again. I pray they just are always able to just reach up and grab it because it will always be there. Lord, I pray they keep your eyes on you. And they do impossible things today. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. There's a song that's going to play. I chose it. It's actually my very favorite song. And it just goes really well with this. I want you to kind of sit in quietness and just meditate, pray, sing, whatever. Just really think about these words and think